So welcome to One BAHT Wisdom, and this is a show that I wanted to do for a long time. And when I really thought about it, I thought I can't just do it on my own. I need someone who's got, knowledge and wisdom covering 5 decades. So Karl was an obvious choice. So how you doing, mate?
Yeah, all right. Yeah. Good to be on board, Pat. Yeah, good idea. I hope we can give them their one baht's worth.
Yeah, exactly. 1 baht's worth of wisdom. I did have a plan to call it Not So Grumpy Old Men, but you thought up 1 baht wisdom. I thought that sort of summed it up perfectly, actually.
Yeah. It just sort of rolls off the tongue and it's easy to say.
And we got a lot of questions. We've got a lot of discussion. Our 1 baht wisdom on certain topics and ideas.
I mean, God, you know what it's like life in Thailand. I don't think I'd ever run out of things to talk about. Yeah, I'm sure we're going to have some fun, mate.
I wanted to get into stuff in depth where we could both talk from experience and give our knowledge and also speak from the heart.
Yeah.
All right, Karl, let's kick off with the inevitable questions. Duncan says, how can one best help their Thai partner to save or maintain face in Thailand?
Buy them loads of gold. You'll get all the face, but it's a dangerous game and I'm not recommending it. My advice would be try your best to bypass the face game.
Yeah, I know. Face is in every aspect of society, isn't it? If you can get by without making someone lose it, then you're safe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a good way to play it. And also, we're not very good at that game, so we tend to be on the losing end of it, which is a common comment.
There's a question here from Paul Wallace. He's a friend of my channel and your channel, and he is a great storyteller. He says there should be a box rental at the airport where Farang arrivals can put all their assumptions and prejudices before they enter Thailand for real. I think there is, but most guys just leave their brains there.
Don't they, mate? Never a truer thing said. Yeah, there's a few on every jumbo jet.
Yeah, there's a queue of them every single day.
Yeah.
Anyway, Karl, I think this one is aimed at you. This one is from Des Mahoney. He says, I know Karl's Thai speaking ability is excellent. How did he master it so well? Did you go to a language school? And what is your ability, Pat? We'll answer yours first, I think.
All right, okay, yeah. Well, the first trip I came to Thailand in 1987, I sort of I think I learned how to say how much and not very well. So I didn't really have an interest in the language then. But on my second trip in 1988, something happened where I wanted to ask for something. It was frustrating. I think it was orange juice, and I couldn't get what I wanted. And somebody answered for me, but they did it in a very sort of I suppose I'll have to help you out, and asked me this. And I just remember thinking, why don't you learn Thai? He just sort of got the idea. So what I did was I went back to the UK. Remember this is the 80s. And there used to be a company called Linguaphone. If you remember them, it was books and cassette tapes it was in them days. And you got a free Walkman with your course. Now, it was over £200 and this was in the 80s, people don't know how spoiled they are now. If you want to learn Thai now, you've got free YouTube channels, you've got so many resources that you can learn Thai for free. But it was £200 and it was one of these courses where you'd sort of you'd have set lessons, it would have characters and it would set up scenarios like a little play. Tom was the businessman, this Linguaphone course. And I really enjoyed it. I got into it And I'd do that, and I had a friend of mine, Perry, he wanted to learn Thai as well, so we'd come over. He'd come over to my house a few times a week, and we'd do it, we'd learn this, and then once a week I had a friend who had a Thai wife, and they'd come over, and at the end of the week I'd sort of like, I'd go back over what I'd learned with her, you know, and she'd sort of correct me with any mistakes, you know. So that was it. That was it really. It was a linguaphone course, and these things were like hard to come by in them days, you know, there weren't a lot around. And then when I finished the linguaphone course, which took about, I think it was 3 or 4 months, I looked for another, and I ended up buying this FSI, Foreign Service Institute course. Like, it was an American one that they used to give to their, you know, they used to give to their agents out here and that in the 50s and that. And so it was very like pure Thai, very old world Thai, you know, very kind of repetitive, you know. And again, it was a cassette tape course, you know. So, but I learned it in England, right? And it was like, really, it was like, it kept me going, it kept me motivated between trips. And looking back now, like, I'm kind of like so happy that I did it that way, because I can see now what it did was I built the foundations properly, you know. I learned about all the grammar and everything. So it taught me to sort of like walk before I learned to run, you know?
Yeah. I learned as a kid with my mum, and then she passed away, and then I forgot most of it, as did my sisters. My mum and dad used to speak Thai in the house, so we had a good knowledge of it. But after she died, I didn't come here till I was in my early 20s, and I'd forgotten most of it. So now I would say my ability is about 65%. People say you should speak Thai in your videos because you're doing a Thai YouTube channel, but my channel's not aimed at Thais.
Right.
It's
yeah.
aimed at English speakers.
Yeah.
So I will anglicise most Thai place names because of the way they're spelt and because of the way expats will look at them and read them.
Yeah.
People criticise me for getting pronunciations wrong, which I do, because sometimes if you anglicise a certain Thai word, you will say it in a way that is wrong if you was a Thai. And I find it funny that the people who get so wound up about it, they're all foreigners. And I'm thinking there's a lot of perfectly fluent guys out there who are complaining on YouTube channels about a YouTube vlogger's Thai speaking ability.
I'll tell you what, I hate them. I call them the pronunciation snobs, Pat. And I've got a bit to say about this, you know, because it's close to my heart. I'll tell you the one they always pick on is how do you say Pattaya or Pattaya? You know, Pattaya. But they always pick on that one. They always say, oh, you say that wrong. You know, you say Pattaya wrong. I'll tell you what my feeling is if I'm talking with other Westerners, I'm going to say, yeah, Pattaya or Pattaya or whatever, because if you start speaking using Thai pronunciation in the middle of an English conversation, it just sounds really silly and try hard, you know. And the other thing, like, always, if they annoy me, I've said it to a couple of them when they correct me, I'll say, well, you know, like, well, what's that island just off the coast at Pattaya? And they go, Koh Lan. And I'll say, well, no, it's Got Lan. and then, well, you know, how about that island next to Koh Phangan, the big one, you know, Koh Samui? No, it's Got Samui. How about that other one down in Tra, you know, Koh Chang? No, it's Got Tang. And like, this is, like, listen, I mean, I can understand people being anal about pronunciation, but if you're going to be anal about it, at least be consistent. You know, like, why is it important to say Pattaya correctly, but like everywhere else you say, you can't say it correctly? Do you know what I mean? And I think the answer is because, like, you know, Pattaya is one that it is pretty easy for Westerners to say correctly.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, there's a couple of high tones and a mid tone. But then when you get the rising tones and the high tones and the low tones, then it gets more difficult, you know. So that is my, you know, if you start speaking Thai in the middle of an English sentence, it sounds silly.
I can't do that on videos. That's what people complain about. So, yeah, Pattaya is the first way I heard it. that is the first way I heard it
But
pronounced.
it's who you talk with. I mean, I will try to say, if I'm doing a video, and I think it's important, I will talk and I will try to say the name of a national park. I will try to say it properly. But, you know, if you're having a conversation, if I'm having a conversation with my friends, it's Pattaya, it's Koh Samui.
Yeah.
You know, I know how it should be said. You know, I just choose not to because I think it sounds silly when I'm talking to other, you know, Westerners.
I know Pattaya, but if I'm getting a taxi to Pattaya, I won't say, oh, by Pattaya. I'll say by Pattaya.
Yeah.
You can ask 4 different Thais, and they'll say it in 4 different ways, in different tones.
Sometimes they pronounce it.
And same as like Sukhumvit Road,
Yeah.
that's how Westerners say it, Sukhumvit. If I'm
Yeah.
getting in a taxi, I'll go
Yeah.
by Sukhumvit because that's what he understands. So I wish people would understand more the thing about speaking in videos when you do it in English. I wasn't born a native Thai speaker.
Yeah.
You hear Thai newsreaders or Thai reporters speak in English, and they can do that
Yeah.
and get the Thai pronunciation correct because they've grown up with their mouth being able to
Sure.
do those different tones. So it's, you know, one of those things that people will always find something to moan about. But I've never had a comment from a Thai or in Thai moaning about my pronunciation. Next question, and I think this is one I can answer in 2 seconds. David Shannon, where did all the cats in Lumpini Park go? I was there a month ago. I walked around for 3 hours and found only 2. Well, quick answer, you were probably walking around during the day when the monitor lizards are out, but come the night time, that's the shift the cats are working on.
Right.
So if you go there after 6, you'll see them all hanging out. So I think that's a quick answer to that. Another quick one, Karl, maybe you can answer this because you're living in a place where they have lots of BAHT buses. What does it really cost to ride a BAHT bus?
10 baht currently.
10 baht, okay.
You can actually, I think that, no, there are supposed to be a couple of them where it's 20 if if you come from like if you do the full course, you know, but I'm not 100% sure, you know, yet some BAHT buses come from sort of like Jomtien, you know, the far end of Jomtien, and I think there might be 1 or 2 routes where it is actually 20, but I can't actually name the routes.
I remember first time I went to Pattaya, a friend of mine had told me beforehand, he goes, oh, when you pay for the BAHT bus, give them 5 baht, because it was 5 baht then, and then walk away quickly, because then they don't have a time to shout after you that because you're a foreigner it's going to be more.
Yeah, no, that was good advice. Going back, if you went back like 15, 20 years, yeah, I can remember definitely 20 years ago, it was 5 baht, but they weren't very happy about it, you know, yeah, and they made it known.
Social etiquette basics. This question from Luke says, I visit our factory in Bangkok regularly and still don't feel confident that I'm greeting and acknowledging the various team members correctly, from the ladies on the factory floor up to the main boss and his wife. Probably a bit basic for you guys to cover, but it would be great to get your take on this as I trust your advice.
Right, well, didn't you have some experience at a Thai school?
Yeah, I always give this advice to people who take jobs, particularly at government schools, because I met so many teachers in the 2 government schools I worked at. And I say so many because loads came and went, you know. And a lot of them always used to moan that they never got any acknowledgement from the Thai staff, or they got gossiped about, and they were just trying to be friends with everyone. And I always said to people going to work in this government school environment is to keep your interactions at arm's length. Just give a quick smile, walk on by. Because you're a foreigner, it's not expected of you to even widen, because it will be expected all the time.
Yeah.
And if you're in a bad mood one morning and you just, like, instead of, you know, doing a why to this teacher and you just nod and smile and walk on, they might think, oh, why hasn't he done that to me? But he does it to this teacher.
Yeah, sure, yeah, you end up digging yourself in a
and then gossip starts.
Yeah. My honest opinion of it is that yeah, you've got to learn the basics. You know, you've got to learn obviously what they find offensive. You know, like talking loudly, pointing, especially with your feet. You know, you've got to understand the importance that they associate, the reverence they give to age. The best bit of advice I could give, honestly, I think, is they expect you to be strange because you're a foreigner. You know, so don't disappoint them. I'm not saying like deliberately act strange, but just, you know, like they're expecting you, you're strange to them just because you're a foreigner. And just sort of like, I think the best advice I can give anybody is to have like, is be fun. You know, I think if you go in any situation in Thailand, you know, they would much rather you go there and have fun and mix with them than they would being stiff and correct. You know what I mean? You know, like, you know, that's it. Yeah, don't disappoint them. Just accept that you're strange. Don't try to be one of them. Don't try to be one of them. And Thais, you know, they're very caught up in this idea of fun. You know, like they say Sanuk, which if you look the translation, it just says fun. But actually the meaning within Thailand is a lot deeper than the word fun. It's almost like it's something that they like to bring into every aspect of their lives, you know, be it business or anything. It's almost like a social responsibility. You know, if there's rice in the paddy fields and fish in the rivers, then life was meant to be good. You know, what have you got to complain about? So yeah, don't get too caught up in it. Yeah, that's my advice. Right. You've been around for a while and met many tourists and expats and everything in between. What personality traits would you say are most helpful to thrive in Thailand, long and short term? And what kind of personalities do you see struggle? Well, I'm laughing to myself as I answer that question. I mean, it's probably the same answer to sort of both sections of the questions. It's like, you've got to be calm. You know what I mean? I think really, you have got to be calm in this place because you know how it is. You know, things don't always happen the way you think they're going to happen, do they? You know.
I think over any situation is calmness and just accept what's going to happen or not happen. I'm not trying to say that things are unreliable. They just happen at their own speed and in their own time.
Yeah, that's it. You know, like the second part of their question, what kind of personality struggle? It's definitely hotheads.
Yeah.
Isn't it? You know, like, you know, you see people here who, you know, their personality types are natural hotheads and they can just destroy themselves, can't they? You know, in fact, a lot of them sort of realise it and I think they just avoid doing anything, don't they? They never go anywhere, you know.
And they end up in places like Pattaya and end up staying in and just posting on social media.
Yeah, I mean,
moaning about it.
Yeah, you've definitely got to be calm. You know, you've got to be able to take things in your stride.
Yeah, definitely. Don't get in people's faces. I think is a good idea. Don't point. Don't shout.
And also, I mean, if you're a hothead, it can really work against you. You know, like especially if you're dealing with officialdom. You know, you know how frustrating it can be where you go and you want to get something done and you're just like confronted with all this paperwork and questions and these people, and it can seem like their sole purpose is to sort of destroy your application for whatever. I had one a few weeks ago. Do you know what I mean? You know, I won't go into details, but I've seen it where people have kind of like lost their temper and it's just worked against. Now I can remember my friend Steve. I'm going back to the late 90s now. He was getting married, and you know he'd been with his Thai wife for a long time. You know, they'd been boyfriend and girlfriend for a long time, and they were getting married. So his father came out. His father came out with his girlfriend to attend the wedding, and we went to the AMPA, you know, to register the wedding, and they started looking for all the paperwork, which obviously they have to do. But for some reason, they started looking through Steve's father's passport. And I can't remember what it was, but they found something that they thought was wrong with Steve's father's passport. And it was just like, no, the wedding can't go ahead, like that's it. We're calling the wedding. And of course I'm thinking, well, what would have happened if Steve's father hadn't have come to the wedding? You know what I mean? It would have everything would have been fine. But Steve was getting, obviously, understandably, he was getting very agitated about it. And this official was just digging their heels in. And it just reached this kind of situation where they both want to give. And in the end, I just sort of like pulled Steve to one side and I said, Steve, look, like, how far's the next ampere? Just say okay, and then we'll go to the next ampere. And we did that. We drove about 30 kilometres next ampere, and then it was done with no problem. So yeah, it can really work against you if you're a hothead.
What was wrong with his father's passport?
I can't even remember.
When I got a new phone, I had to reinstall my banking apps on the new phone.
Yeah.
Only Bangkok Bank let me in, and you had to do a facial recognition picture. But my Krung Si bank wouldn't let me log in, and I'd also changed my phone number. So I went into the branch and explained to them what had happened, and I needed to change my phone number and be able to log in. And the girl behind the desk, she was fine. She says, oh, yeah, and she was tapping away on the computer, changing the number. And then this older lady came over and said, to her, what's happening? What about this? What are you doing for him? And she suddenly decided that it wasn't all right because I'd opened that account years ago on a British passport, but I'd swapped the details to a Thai ID a couple of years later. And now she decided that I needed a letter from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to prove that I was actually a Thai citizen. I think this was her whim.
Yeah.
You get these old ladies in banks who throw a spanner in the works. They decide that you can't have an easy life after all, and their staff are wrong. And of course, the young lady serving me, she can't question this lady older than her, more senior than her, because it'll make her lose face.
That is so important. What you just got onto there, Pat. I mean, this goes up to political level. But there were so many, let's say, decisions that end up sort of aren't popular and eventually end up getting reversed. But nobody is going to question their superior. She's like, right, yes, and then in the end, nothing gets changed with some of these decisions that might be bad. Nothing gets changed until it goes up the chain, and somebody who is above the guy who made the decision sort of says, no, this has got to stop. So yeah, that's very important what you just said.
Well, needless to say, I abandoned that bank account completely. It was just one I used to, have petty cash coming in and out. So that was their loss. They didn't have my, few hundred going in and out. So yeah, that was something that I remained calm during.
Yeah, it's lucky that we're both calm by nature. Yeah, it really is. Right, this is a question I got somebody, I think it says Ormy does. He said, I heard most land and property sales in Thailand have to be at least 51% Thai owned. Is this correct? Which Farangs can own land and businesses outright, if at all possible? Now, I work at Anglo-Siam Legal, so what I did was, at the end of last week, I asked a couple of our Thai lawyers to give me an answer to this, and I've based this answer on the information they gave me. Right. In Thailand, foreigners generally can't own land outright, but there are a few workarounds. You can own a condo up to 49% of a building, lease land, 30 years max with possible renewal, or marry a Thai, but the land goes in the Thai spouse's name. To protect your interest, you can register something called an usufruct that gives you lifetime use and control of the land through sort of, just like a legal structure. Or superfices, which lets you own a building on someone else's land. Also, inheriting land. It's possible, but restricted, often with a 1-year limit to sell. You can also co-own a Thai company up to 49% that buys land, only if it's a real trading business. You know, that's a bit of contention at the moment, you know, because the Thais are clamping down, you know, on a lot of these, you know, where they're just kind of like token businesses and they're not really functioning right. Major investors, 40 million plus BAHT, may get approval to own up to 1 rai of land, but it's rare. Even US amity treaty companies can't own land, right? So yes, there are options, but with a lot of strings attached. That's it. That's the answer. You know, it can be done, but it's complicated, very complicated.
Yeah, a lot of people ask that. Even people ask me that, like I have some kind of insider knowledge. In fact, a lot of people, they probably ask you as well. You know, ask me random questions, send me messages, emails. And I think they think that I must have insider knowledge or something, or I know someone. Because they'll ask me about, one guy actually asked me, he goes, where can I find a good Thai girl? That was his question. Where can I get a date? How can I get a date with a good Thai girl? And what he means by that is a girl who's not connected to the nightlife industry in any way, either through working at a bar or working in a club or a pub, not necessarily as a bar girl, but you know what I'm saying. And I think he expected me to set him up with someone, like just to help him out. Oh yeah, I know this girl. She's you know, she's a secretary somewhere. She's totally normal. You know, and I
think if you know, I think if you have to answer that question, you're probably not ready for the answer, you know.
And to be honest, a lot of them, I don't even bother answering now. I won't be someone who is, you know, information abused, because a lot of people, you know, in the early days, I did sit and type out these lists for people who asked me.
Yeah.
And I'd say 90% of the time, you don't even get a reply of thanks. Yeah. Don't even acknowledge.
Do you know, just a couple of days ago, someone sent me a message. You know, it was a Facebook friend. Somebody sent me a friend request and I accepted it. And they sent me a message and it was like, how do I get to this new BTS station? You know, and I just sort of like, I thought, well, I could look it up. I thought, well, you know, like they can look it up because I've got the map. And I just told them the truth. You know, I spend so little time in Bangkok these days and I know so little about the BTS system that I'm sorry, I'm just not the person to ask, you know.
But yeah, if people really want to know stuff, you know, if someone's moving here next year and they want advice on areas to live in, I can give them a tour that they can pay for, or they can have a chat with me for a couple of hours as a consultation fee. No,
that's true actually, because I mean, it is your time, you know.
I think the most common question is, where can I rent a condo for X amount of money? I've seen online all these agencies quoting me prices. And I've always said to people, get out on foot, you see a nice condo, go in reception and talk to the people there. The chances are they'll have the keys to all the condos that are available to rent. They'll be in contact with the owners of these condos direct. That is the best way. Don't do stuff online through agents or through Facebook, because at some point along the way you're getting charged more than you should.
Oh, Thailand's a land of middlemen, and you get like the prices of things aren't quite as fixed as they are in the UK. Like in the UK, you can look at a house on this road and there's guides and it will tell you, you know, almost to the pound how much that property's worth. Whereas with Thailand, it sort of is a lot more of what you can get, isn't there? And there's agents of agents of agents, and you know, everybody will give you 3% if you make a sale from cut out as many middlemen as possible.
I think so, yeah. So this guy Daniel says, as a Farang, I noticed that in general the Thai people revere Rama 5, King Chulalongkorn. I see his photo in many Thai homes. Can you explain why?
He was very well travelled within his own country, because it's amazing how many places I've been to, you know, like caves and things, and they say, oh, King Chulalongkorn, come here. And these places are remote today. So, you know, like over 100 years ago, they must have been really, really remote. And, I think he was the guy who abolished slavery a bit west. But, I must admit I'm not that much of a history buff.
And King Chulalongkorn, he was well-travelled. He liked travelling by train, I know that. And he travelled around Europe by train, and he stopped in Frankfurt, and he really liked the design of Frankfurt main railway station, and the two Italian architects. He got them to have one built in Bangkok, a Chulalongkorn station. And sadly, he never lived to see it.
Oh, right.
He died in 1910 and the station opened in 1916. I think he was definitely responsible for, it was the first ever major wave of modernisation.
Right, yeah.
In not only Bangkok, all over Thailand. So definitely King Rama V, very much revered. Karl, this is a question that was actually on your channel.
Yeah.
So what did it say?
It said, if you both had to take a tour from each other, where would you go? Where would you want them to take you?
Well, I'll tell you what, when I did my Don Mueang video, I got very much into the stories of aviation accidents because I had to cover a couple for that video that happened at Don Mueang. And there was one that you gave me some information about, and you had actually been there, and that is the Lauda air crash.
Yeah.
What year was that?
I think it was, I can't remember if it was 91 or 92. It was 91. Yeah, it was 1991. I was actually here when it happened, you know. So yeah, I've got, you know, I can actually remember a lot of the things that went on around that time.
Because we got plans to actually go to the site.
That's right. I think it's something we should do, Pat. You know, because I think, you know, with your sort of love of history and things like that, and
Yeah, you could show them the parts of the plane, and I could board,
it's a bit of a journey. It's a bit of a journey to get there, so I'll sort of love it. I'll get off on that side of it. So yeah, we'll do it.
Yeah, we'll do that, and we'll put a video out. Well, you heard it here first. Yeah.
Right, now my part of the question, where would I like Pat to take me? I suppose obviously it's going to have to be Bangkok. Do you know what? Probably Chinatown. Because when I lived here, it was a place that sort of, you know, Yarra round that way. You know, when I lived here, it was a place I never really spent a lot of time. You know, I didn't really know a lot about it. And there's a lot of old buildings there, and
yeah, there's a lot more to Chinatown than just the main sort of Yawalat roads. There's a lot of back streets. There's a lot of alleyways interconnecting. There's a lot of history in some of those back streets. There's hidden markets where they sell stuff you would never imagine you would ever see being sold. There's the other side of it, more towards the river, Talad Noi, getting a bit commercial now, but still great to, you know, have a walk around in.
There you go. I see, I've got the right guide. I can tell that already. You know?
That's enough, right? I could go on and on. I thought as we're here, we should mention that we're in a place called Bourbon Street, which is in the Etiquette area. And Bourbon Street has a history going back 39 years. You actually went there.
When you said to me, I think I've arranged somewhere we can do the show, you know, this guy called Doug, I said we use Bourbon Street. I thought, oh, is that the Bourbon Street, you know, like it used to be in Washington Square, you know, it used to be Sukhumvit, Soy 22, which I used to go to sometimes. So when I met Doug earlier today, I said to him, is it any relation to the Bourbon Street that used to be in Washington Square? And he said, yeah, he used to be the proprietor of that one too. So, yeah, trip down memory lane. I had a burger here, it was great.
Yeah. All right, let's see if we can ask Doug a couple of questions. He's been here probably as long as you have, mate.
Oh, longer, I think. Yeah, longer. If you could go back to Bangkok in the 1980s, what would be the first place you went to?
Probably the first place I went to when I got here back then, in 1982, which was Patpong. It was certainly a different place back then than it was now. It was the meeting place for everybody back in those days. not only did they have all the bars, but they had great restaurants down there. And being from New Orleans and a foodie, as well, I've been in the restaurant business for September will be 39 years. So I'm definitely always looking for a good meal.
And how soon was it that you got the idea of opening Bourbon Street, the original one?
I was hanging out here in '86. I'd finished up a job in the Middle East, and I'd made too much money to go back home and lose my tax break. So I ended up buying a bar with a friend, like a lot of people do, but quickly realized that being behind the bar and putting up with people like me on the outside of the bar, I turned it into a family restaurant and have not looked back.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Doug.
Thank you. Appreciate y'all coming by.
Next question.
Yeah, right, okay. Right, I've been visiting Thailand for the past 37 years. My reasonable question is this: is Thailand today still the same country it was 37 years ago in terms of what it has to offer visitors today versus back then? Well, I think, I've been coming out here for 38 years. Obviously it's changed. But looking, but then looking at the wording of your question in terms of what it has to offer visitors today versus back then, well, in all honesty, it's probably got more to offer today than it did have back then. There's a lot of world-class restaurants and that didn't exist. Like the infrastructure is so much better, but it was more of an adventure back then.
Yeah, I think they cater to more different types of people, a bigger demographic now than, I wasn't here 37 years ago, but when I first came here in 99, there was a lot smaller number of foreigners who were living here, so there was a lot less catered for. But now, as you say, there's...
Well, it has, it's changed such a lot, it was such an adventure even planning the trip back then, I can remember the first time I came to Thailand, my friend had to come down and stay at my house for a weekend just to book a ticket, do you know what I mean? Because you had to look through a magazine, and then you had to exchange them out, and then you had to telephone everybody, and then you wrote down the number and how much the price was, and then you chose your ticket, then you phoned them, and then you had to go down there and pay for it and collect it, So it really was, it took days, like now, people can just do it on an app for themselves and their mates in sort of 10 minutes,
Yeah.
So it's just a lot more accessible now.
Definitely. I remember buying my air tickets to come to Thailand in 26 years ago. And for me, being able to phone up my guy in Denmark Street, this Indian guy, he had a little ramshackle office above a music shop. And I used to phone him up and say, I need a ticket for Bangkok for 2 weeks' time. And I'd go and collect it later on in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And I thought that was amazing. You know?
Yeah.
I thought that was so state of the art. Whereas now, like you say, you can just do it on an app in 2 minutes. Karl, when was the last time you was in the UK?
2019.
Me too, actually.
Yeah.
You got plans to go back?
No.
No. I'm not bothered. I might have to go back to see my sister, my dad, my friends eventually. I will go back sometime probably next year, but obviously not to live.
Yeah.
Not at all. So what do you think of how life has become over in the UK now? Obviously we've seen the news, we haven't actually been there.
Yeah.
Do you think it's as bad as people say?
Well, yeah, because everybody's saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You can't, yeah, it's beyond, and also, what you see and you pick up and you read on the news, and, it's just, yeah, it's true. Yeah, I think I was getting frustrated there in the past, but I just think, I'd be really, really, really frustrated there now, and it's a shame really, because I'm quite a sort of patriot in some ways, because I really think that England, Britain, the UK, it's got a lot to be proud of, a lot of kind of history. I'm quite proud of a lot of the roles that we've played in the world. I know, some people sort of there were some negative aspects of it, but we we were a leading nation, and English language is the most popular language in the world. There's still a lot of things that I love about the UK, like the English sense of humour, which, I think it sort of seems to be slowly dying to death, doesn't it? It's not allowed anymore, and the countryside, like...
Yeah, Cornwall was great. I probably missed Cornwall in the years I lived there, 2009 to 2016. Probably missed that more than I miss London.
Right.
One thing you don't get once you leave the UK is that old-fashioned British sense of fair play.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
sportsmanship. Yeah.
Sportsmanship. Anyone can succeed. You could be of any colour of your skin, any gender, disability. You still get a fair crack at the whip.
Yeah.
And you miss that when you leave, because you come to cultures like Thai culture and you see that things depend on how you look, what colour you are,
Sure.
what passport you got. And that's one thing, I always thought was an attribute to British society.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's, I think it doesn't always translate, doesn't it? Because I think if you take it into cultures that weren't brought up that way, I think it's just perceived as a weakness. Do you know what I mean? Right, okay, next question from Barry. Can you tell us about income streams, jobs good and bad, and what you've earned over the years?
What we've earned over the years? I don't know what Barry is expecting us to answer to that. I'm not going to give a detailed breakdown of how much money I've earned. It's been up and down over the years, obviously, living in Bangkok. I think people want to hear like stories of grandeur, don't they? They want to hear that, you got millions, you started at the bottom, you worked your way up. But no, that's not been the case, I've done jobs over the years because I've needed to make money to survive. Yeah. I'm not going to be one of these guys who pretends he's doing well and pretends, he made it somewhere in crypto or some business, and he's come to Thailand and he's only doing teaching because he's got spare time and he doesn't really need the money. I don't buy into all that, so no, I'm not going to give any figures or whatever. What about you?
God, I'll tell you what, I loathe to give people financial advice, I really do. But, like me, I've just done so many varied jobs, I mean? Like, I think one of the best things I ever did, the coolest thing I ever did, was I used to sell Beatles memorabilia. And I did that virtually for school, and it was so cool, and we did really well at it. Myself and my business partner, we were like age 21, and between us, we bought like a nice semi-detached house in a really nice suburb of London, So it was like we were doing really well at a young age, and it was so much fun, We were going around Beatles conventions, we were smuggling in bootleg LPs from Holland. Do you know what I mean? It was like meeting people who were associated with the Beatles, and there were a lot more of them around at that time, you know what I mean? Going back, they were all sort of in their 30s and 40s. So, it was, I'm going back to the 80s. I did that. I've done so many varied jobs. I've been everything from a fishmonger to I'm trying to remember so much. I was a public servant for a while, like very short period of time. Worked in a news agency. There's so much. I mean, now I'm still working. I work in Bangkok. I work at Anglo Siam Legal in Bangkok. So I'm still working. So I'll give you one bit of advice for an income stream. Don't start a YouTube channel about jungle hiking. There you go. Actually, I'm qualified to give that bit of advice.
Actually, saying that, I mean, I've always earned my own money from the age of 12.
Right.
I didn't need pocket money. I had a paper round. I washed cars door to door. I worked in a butcher's.
Yeah.
I did various things. Some were below the law, some were above the law. Back in England between 2010 and 2017, when I just come back here, I used to sell rare books on eBay.
Right.
And it all started because when I got back to England 2009, I went and lived in Cornwall, and there was loads of charity shops everywhere.
Yeah.
There'd been a recession. There was loads of them. So I used to go around looking for books, and I used to see what I thought was a rare publisher or a rare book, and I'd Google it on my phone in the shop and find out like the cheapest one that you see on eBay was like 75 quid.
Yeah.
I think, oh, I'll have that. And I got really addicted to going around charity shops all around Cornwall buying rare books and selling them. And it was quite, profitable for a while. The last book I sold was, I was already moved back here, 2017 it was. It was a very rare book about Japanese Kempo karate, written by a doctor, someone, Japanese. It was in English, but it was bought by a judo master in Puerto Rico. Not much, 27 quid, I think.
Well, that's it. It sounds very similar to the Beatles business, going around looking for things, because we used to be going around record stores and putting adverts out and seeing what people had. I will just add, that my work life hasn't been a total failure. There are a couple of times where I have made decent money, and both times it's been on property deals. Buying houses at the right time and then selling them at the right time.
Yeah, we used to knock on doors when I was 12, 13. We used to go up Bishop's Avenue or Hampstead because they had nice cars and they were rich.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
We'd knock on a door and, within 3 or 4 doors, someone would say, oh, yeah, they'll give you a £5, wash their car.
Yeah.
And they trusted you, to go in their car and clean all the windows and everything. So, yeah, work's been varied for me. I haven't stuck with one career, obviously, and neither have you. So I hope that answers that question. What is your favourite city in Thailand? If Bangkok, which part and why?
For me, I don't. It's a very hard question to answer because there's so many different aspects to it. But in terms of somewhere that I just sort of like, I think it looks beautiful and it's very relaxed. It probably would be Nakhon Phanom.
Yeah, Nakhon Phanom. I went there for a week in 2017, and I was staying in a hotel on the river. I could see Laos across the river, and that was the only place ever in my whole time in Thailand that I was stopped by immigration and asked for ID. And of course, there's a border checkpoint in Nakhon Phanom, and basically the immigration team were doing a sweep of the whole of the main, the main drag with all the bars and the pubs with the clock tower. They were basically going down there. And I like Nakhon Phanom. I thought the scenery was awesome. You got the Ho Chi Minh Museum, that interested me as well because he lived there for a while.
My first memories in Nakhon Phanom, I used to have the first foreign guy I knew who lived up country in Thailand was a guy called Graham, and he was the brother of my old business partner. I used to run a business selling Beatles memorabilia in the 80s, and his brother Graham, they used to call him Mr. Graham. He ended up he met a girl, he married a girl from Nakhon Phanom, so he used to live about 10, 15 kilometres outside of Nakhon Phanom. So we went up there to see him a couple of times, and he was like a real. He liked to drink, as did all the locals there. And Graham was like, he was a nightmare. And he went to some party and all the police were there and he was drinking with them and he got like totally drunk. And he wanted to go back to his village, which was about 5 kilometres away. And he was saying, look, will you give me a lift back to the village? And these coppers didn't, like, they were enjoying the party. And, oh, no, later. So in the end, like, Graham was drunk. He nicked their police car, their police pickup, and he drove it to go back to his village, a place called Bantan, and near Tatu 10, and he drove it back there and he crashed it.
Oh no!
He crashed their police car, so they had to, like, severe loss of face.
Oh God!
So he ended up. I think he had to spend about a week in Tatu 10 police station. Like,
What, as a punishment?
well, he damaged the police car.
Oh right.
And plus, of course, like, it was a big loss of face for them, you know what I mean? Like, it was a real character. So, yeah, it was a real Wild Westy place back then, Pat, but I still like Nakhon Phanom, but yeah, it's a lot more civilised these days.
What about the Pat era of the early 2000s?
Well, yeah, no,
It was
great.
different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was, yeah, Pattaya in the 90s and the early 2000s. Yeah, I think it probably I mean, I still like it now, though. You know what I mean? I'm sort of, you know, when I talk about it in the past, I don't want to give the wrong idea that I don't like it now.
First couple of times I went, I actually liked it a lot because it had the one Royal Garden Plaza Mall, it had Mike's, I think it had Central Festival Centre, and that was it for shopping really, like commercial malls. And the Royal Garden Plaza had a Tower Records.
I remember it.
Yeah.
Up on the second floor.
And I was still a DJ
Yeah.
back then, so I thought, oh, this is brilliant. It's got, you know, just like home, you know, Piccadilly Circus, Tower Records. So I really liked it. Do you think the legalisation of ganja has been a good thing for Thailand? We see in the news quite often now people trying to smuggle the stuff out of the country. Well, I've seen that.
Yeah. I think it's. Do you know what? Overall, no, I don't think it is a good thing. I really don't. I've never been judgmental on it. You know, it's always like let people do it. You know, and I've had times when I've smoked myself, but that's a totally different thing, is it? You're asking a question: is it really going to do the question good? No. I mean, it's got to be bad for the mental health.
Yeah.
Of the nation, isn't it? You know, I think there are some good sides to it. I mean, I think there were a lot of bad things going on when it was criminal. There were a lot of, there were a lot of
Criminals.
criminals, yeah, and there were a lot of, and also not just like authorities making money on it.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You know, it was a big, wasn't it? You know, there were a lot of people making a lot of money, or there was a lot of money being spent to bail kids out on Koh Phangan, wasn't it? You know, they'd sort of like, they go to the full moon party and then, Mum, I need 5,000 quid. Do you know what I mean? You know, like, so I think, it's good that it kind of ended that, because I think there was some real, it was a bit of a game, wasn't it? You know what I mean? It was a bit of money game. So it was good of that. So, but the thing is that just the laws they brought in have just been totally overlooked and misinterpreted. You have to remember that. You know, the laws were actually so confusing, weren't they? You know, that it has to be for medical purposes and that it has to have like a regulated level of the active ingredient and things like that. And of course, that's just been overlooked.
I think the first year, it was a bit of a novelty. Oh, look, another weed shop's open. This is cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think since we've started to see and smell tourists smoking it everywhere,
Yeah.
and they seem to think like because you can do it,
Yeah.
they should do it in
Yeah.
Lumpini Park, walking down Sukhumvit Road. There was even a guy getting on one of the riverboats. He didn't have his spliff lit. It was in his hand, like unlit, but you could just smell it. And he had it in his fingers, like he's going to light it up as soon as he gets off the boat. I think that's not good because if I'm here with my family, I don't want to smell weed.
And it's not just that, Pat. It's still illegal to do that in here. You're not supposed to be smoking it in real sort of blatant public places. And also, I think if somebody complains about the smell, you're not allowed to do it. So I think it's just very mysterious because the laws that they brought in have just largely been kind of overlooked.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? So, a lot of the big sort of industry is now the sort of, the leisure industry. It's become, still strictly speaking, is illegal.
Yeah.
It's just that nobody's bothering with it,
Well, that just about wraps up our first ever episode of One BAHT Wisdom from Bourbon Street here in the heart of Bangkok. Karl, that was fun, wasn't it, mate?
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah. I think they got their one baht's worth. I don't think.
Mainly.
Yeah, I don't know if they got much more than that. But yeah. Anyway, look, if you've got any questions or any sensible questions, please post them either on my YouTube channel, Karl's Thailand, or obviously Pat's Bangkok Pat, and we'll answer whatever we can.
All right. Cheers.